Okay, friends. So we'll start with PV system economics before moving on to generation investment planning. So in generation investment planning, we will cover almost all the generation technologies. Here we will limit our economic analysis to PV systems only. Now the PV system economics can be discussed in different levels. It can be in the consumer level, or the manufacturing level, or the installers level, or the technology level, or the electric grid level. So in this analysis, we will confine our study to consumer level. Okay. Now before going into the details of PV system economics, let's define the basic term, which is the payback period. The payback period is defined as, in general, in finance, the payback period is defined as the amount of time required to recover the cost of any investment. So mathematically, we will say that payback period is equal to initial investment divided by annual return. So from consumer point of view, if he installs a solar panel on the rooftop of his residence, then because of this installation, he may have some savings in his electricity bill. So that can be one portion of the annual return. Then the excess power, after meeting his own local demand, he can supply it to the grid and earn some income from there also. That is another source of income. So that can also be a part of annual return. So whatever he earns because of installation of the solar panel, that will contribute to the annual return. Now we will apply this to an example and see how payback period is found. Let the gross cost of the PV system installed at a particular location on the rooftop of a house, let it be $30,000. But for this $30,000, he gets a discount of $10,000 as subsidy in the upfront cost. So the net cost is only $20,000. Now, after installing the PV panel, he saves $100 electricity bill. So this $100, say the consumer had his electricity bill prior to installation of solar panel as $100, and if the complete local load of the house is now met by the installed solar PV, then the $100, the complete $100 is a savings, is a saving now in the electricity bill. So this is monthly saving. Now it can be converted to yearly saving. So $1,200 per year would be the savings in electricity bill. Okay. Now, in addition to this, if he has excess power after meeting his own local demand, he pumps it to the grid, and by that he is saving, he is earning $1,500 per year. So $1,200 per year is the electricity bill saving, and $1,500 per year is the earnings from sale of electricity or by pumping electricity to the the solar power to the grid, to the upstream grid. So the total yearly savings is now this one, $2,700 per year. So this can be the annual return in this case. In this case, the annual return can be this one. Okay, annual return can be this one. Now the initial investment is what? 30,000 minus 10,000. 30,000 minus 10,000, which is 20,000. So this is 20,000. So the payback period is now. What is the payback time? Payback period is equal to 20,000 divided by 2,700, which is equal to approximately equal to 7.4 years. So this is the payback period. Okay, now this is a simplified way of calculating the payback period. If we want to do it practically for a system in detail, then other aspects should be taken into consideration. So the payback time is influenced by the annual solar radiation on the PV system at the location on which it is installed. Then so irradiation is one factor. Irradiation. Then it can depend on the orientation of the panel. This we have discussed, because if the panel is completely placed in a horizontal manner, then the irradiation is different. The irradiation received by the panel is different. If it is at a particular angle, then it is different. So the power production depends on the orientation of the panel also. Then basically the location itself, because if the irradiation is more, that means the location is sunnier. When the location is sunnier, the PV yield is more, right? PV yield is more, and that will reduce the period of payback. So that will give you a shorter payback period. Payback time will be shorter. And another aspect is the grid electricity cost. Grid electricity cost. So if the retail price of electricity from the grid is very high in that location, say if it is very high in that particular location, then after installing the solar PV panel, the difference in the PV power cost and the grid electricity cost would be more. So you will get more savings in terms of discounts, in terms of savings in electricity bills. So if the grid electricity cost is more in that particular location, that will also make the payback time shorter. Okay. Now the payback time also is dependent on the initial cost of the PV system. So if the initial cost is less, then the payback time will be shorter. So it depends on the initial cost also. Now, in addition to this, more factors must be taken into consideration in contrast to the simple example which we have seen now. But it will increase the complexity of the calculation of payback time. Say if we are considering a significant period of time as the lifetime of solar PV panel, say 20 years. 20 years. Okay. So the change of value of money has to be taken into account. Normally, when we do discounted cash flow analysis, we know that 100 rupees paid after 1 year, 100 rupees paid after 1 year can be equivalent to 90 rupees paid now. Because if 10% is the inflation, whatever you get for 90% now, whatever you are able to purchase with 90 rupees now, you will be able to purchase with 100 rupees only after 1 year. So if you get 90 rupees, somehow you can make it, with 10% interest, you can make it 100 rupees after 1 year. So this is what we need to consider while calculating the payback period. The time value for money has to be taken into account. So then another factor can be the policies of the utility or policies of the regulator. Sometimes the subsidies will be more, sometimes the feed-in tariff would be more. What is feed-in tariff? Feed-in tariff is another term which has to be studied with respect to solar PV economics. Feed-in tariff at the consumer level is the price at which a consumer can sell electricity to the provider, to the electricity provider, or sell electricity to the grid. So if feed-in tariff is more, naturally the annual return would be more. So the payback period would be shorter. Okay. So now feed-in tariff is of two types. One is gross feed-in tariff and another one is net feed-in tariff. The gross feed-in tariff is paid for all the electricity the panels produce, for all the power produced. Now, net feed-in tariff is applied when net feed-in tariff is basically they promise a higher rate for the surplus electricity fed to the grid. So after meeting the local demand, the surplus electricity is if it is pumped to the grid, then they get a higher rate. That means after domestic use of the consumer, when it is subtracted, the excess power is pumped to the grid, so you will get a higher rate. So for any type of feed-in tariff implementation, we need a net metering system. Net metering system in the sense now power flow is in two directions, so there is bidirectional power flow. Bidirectional power flow. Either the consumer takes power from the utility, this is the consumer takes power from the utility, or excess power can be sold to the utility. So the meter here should be able to sense power flow in both directions. So that is what is net metering. Now another term, important term in PV system economics is levelized cost of energy. Levelized cost of energy. It is defined as the cost per kilowatt hour of electricity produced by a power generation facility. So it need not be PV, it can be any generation technology. For any generation technology, this levelized cost of energy is valid. The definition is valid. This is usually used to compare the lifetime cost of the generation technology. So if you want to estimate the effective price per kilowatt hour, so you are the owner of a generation company, say you are the owner of a generation company, then your cost of production is something, suppose $8 per kilowatt hour. Say this is just an example. Okay, this is high, $8 per kilowatt hour. Then the price at which you sell electricity should be obviously more than this. Otherwise, you will not get any profit, right? So because this is the cost of production, so the price should be more. So to arrive at the price of electricity, you need to study, you need to analyze your levelized cost of energy. Mathematically, the levelized cost of energy can be defined as LCOE, levelized cost of energy, is equal to sigma T equals 1 to N IT plus MT plus FT divided by 1 plus R the whole raised to T divided by, so this is the numerator, divided by sigma T equals 1 to N ET divided by 1 plus R the whole raised to T. Okay, so the lifetime of the system is N here. The lifetime of the system is, this is the lifetime of the system in years. Okay, in years. Then IT is the investment expenditure in the year T. IT is the investment in year T. So everything is defined in year T only. Okay. Then MT is the operation and maintenance cost. MT is the O&M cost in year T. Year T. Then what is FT? FT is the fuel expenditure. FT is the fuel cost. Of course, for a PV system, there is no fuel cost. But this is a generic definition for levelized cost of energy. If we use any fuel-based technology, then there will be fuel cost for production of energy. So that should be also taken into consideration. So these things are basically expenses, right? For production, then for as a part of capital investment, as a part of so operation, maintenance, and investment. Everything comes under this. And here the see here R is used, right? Another factor R is used. What is R here? The R is the rate of discount rate. Okay, the discount rate. That means the factor used to discount the future cost and translate them into the present value. As I already told you about this 100 rupees and 90 rupees example. So the based on time value for money, we have to translate future costs into present costs. So for that we take this R. So if 10% is the interest, then 100 rupees after 1 year. If you want to convert this to present value, then 100 divided by 1.1, that is 1 plus 10%, that is 1.1 for 1 year, right? After 1 year. So 1.1 whole raised to 1. This is approximately 90. So this is the present value of this 100 if the interest is 10%. So this is what this 10% is, what is this R. Okay. So levelized cost of energy, the numerator is already defined. Then what is the denominator here? ET divided by 1 plus R, the whole raised to T. ET is the electricity yield for the year T. Okay, electricity yield for the year T. So basically this is the cost, this is the energy. So cost per kilowatt hour, we'll get cost per kilowatt hour. The total production cost is what is levelized cost of energy, which includes both variable and fixed cost. See, the fixed cost is investment equation. Now, the levelized cost of energy is different for different technologies, obviously, because the investment cost is different, then the operation and maintenance cost is different. Everything is different. So in general, the levelized cost of energy for wind energy is the lowest. It is even below the levelized cost of energy of fossil fuels and nuclear based electricity. The levelized cost of energy for PV is slightly above wind, but of course, because of the emergence of new technologies, the cost can be now reduced. There is a reduction in cost, and we are trying to reach at a lower level now. So depending on the location of the panel, the initial investment required and the initial investment required for the PV system, the levelized practice. Then the discount rate R used for calculation will also strongly influence the levelized cost of energy. Now, coming to the last term, which is grid parity. This is also related to PV systems. Grid parity is defined as for solar electricity, for PV based electricity generation. It is a situation at which PV power is can be generated, PV power can be generated at an LCOE, at a levelized cost of energy that is equal to the electricity price from the conventional grid. So normally, what happens is the conventional grid is maintained by the utility, right? And utility has expenses for transmission and distribution. So the price of electricity from the conventional grid will include all those factors, and it would be high when compared to the PV panel, because PV panel can be owned by a single customer or a single consumer or an individual consumer. So there is no point in taking transmission and distribution losses and all. His cost would be less. So his LCOE can be less when compared to LCOE conventional. So the situation at which the LCOE of PV panel is equal to LCOE of conventional grid power, that situation is known as grid parity. So achieving grid parity is a good thing, right? Achieving grid parity and beyond, because LCOE of this is less than conventional, and when it is equal to conventional, there is grid parity, and our aim is to reduce it beyond, right? Beyond grid parity. Okay. So for wind and hydroelectricity, normally installations are financed by companies and installations are done by companies. There are larger investments from investors, and there is no option for a single consumer to produce using a hydroelectric technology or a wind electric technology. Of course, micro wind turbines are there, but they are not used. There is no wide usage of micro wind turbines by the single consumers, residential consumers. But PV can be scaled down to the level of a single module. So even a house owner can become an electricity producer. So basically, he is the consumer who installed the rooftop solar PV panel. He is competing with the grid power provider, right, with respect to price. So he can compete with the grid service provider or supplier, the power supplier. As a consequence, the consumer offering PV electricity to the grid is he can give power at a lower price, because his price is arrived with reference to the LCOE. His price should be more than LCOE, right? And his LCOE is far less than the conventional grid price. So he can arrive at a better price, a competitive price. So that is what is grid parity. Insights to grid parity. So that's all from PV system economics side. Now we'll move on to generation investment planning in the next lecture. Thank you.